Good morning, everyone. It's Wednesday, October 30th. I'm John Weigell here with Mark Dent, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. The biggest O's you're going to see this Halloween aren't in the word boo everywhere, everybody. They're in the zeros. Americans are projected to spend the most ever on Halloween this year. That's bonkers, considering the amount of inflation stories we've been seeing the past few weeks. But there's just something about Halloween that might make it inflation-proof. So why is this holiday creeping higher and higher in revenue almost every year? We'll get to the ghouls and goblins of that in a bit, but first, here is the news for the day. First, McDonald's is back in the news again today since focusing on value offerings for 3 months. The burger giant said overall revenue grew 3% during the most recent quarter compared to last year, but their net income fell. This, of course, doesn't include the E. coli outbreak reported on October 22nd. That'll be for next quarter, and it will be fun. Next, Chinese EV maker BYD is set to hire the former UK chief of Stellantis NV, which owns Fiat, Peugeot, and Jeep. This move, of course, is to help expand BYD into Europe as the company looks to build an executive team there. From there, we go to the presidential election, which I'm sure nobody's been hearing about online. This year's upcoming election has bolstered election betting more than ever, actually. Sites like Polymarket and Kalshi allow users to place bets on the U.S. election outcome, with the former attracting over $100 million in bets after being cleared by a U.S. federal appeals court. Kalshi is currently the 7th most popular on the Apple App Store. So it seems like the sports betting fever has gone to the election this year, Mark.
I think it's just not surprising. Many years ago, I was in Ireland to cover a sporting event, and one of my colleagues there had just been talking to a local Irish person who was talking about how much they gamble there, where it's been legal for a long time. And he made the comment, this Irish guy was just like, yeah, over here, we'll bet on which fly can crawl up the wall the fastest. It's like once you introduce gambling, people just do it. And that's very good news for companies like DraftKings and obviously even some of these places like Polymarket and Kalshi. But I just think this is the future. Yeah. Bottom line, like there's going to be betting on everything.
Yeah, I guess it just increases the entertainment of anything that you're doing tenfold by betting on it historically.
I mean, maybe. Entertainment for some, certainly like anxiety. That's clear.
Yeah, anxiety for me, 100%. And finally here, Starbucks is getting a bit cagey with its return to work policies. The coffee powerhouse just warned its corporate staff that if they can't come into the office at least 3 days a week, that they could be terminated. I think this is probably the most extreme return to office policy that we've seen in some time, but a lot of companies around them are seemingly trying to do the same thing. What do you think about this development, Mark? We've kind of been hearing murmurings about how the Starbucks CEO, the new one, Brian Niccol, wants everybody back in the office, but I didn't think they would go this far.
Well, and we've also heard the confirmed reporting that everybody knows, which is that Brian Niccol lives in California.
Yeah. Yes,
he doesn't even live in the same state as the Starbucks headquarters. So
yes,
I'm completely on board with a lot of these return to work new rules. And 3 days a week, I think is probably fair. And I would suspect even most employees would find that fair, if not even something they would prefer over, just complete flexibility. But it's kind of like, I don't know, just the optics of this. They ring to me a little bit more hollow of saying like, we need everyone in the office when it's like, well, the CEO still has a home in California instead of in Washington. So
yeah, that part is a bit strange. He does, although, take a jet in quite often. So, I mean,
true. But either way, it's still just quite ironic, I suppose.
It is. We talk about the jet. We could talk about the emissions every week. We could talk about a whole lot here, but a couple other companies like Amazon's trying to do a similar thing. They told employees that if they don't come in at least part of the week, that they won't be considered for promotions. You have companies like Dell that did the same thing, that they won't be considered for promotions. The Dell employees, though, didn't really care. So we're just in this bounce back period from post-pandemic where all these companies want to make back on their office investments and get people back. But all of us are like, I'm kind of liking this not going anywhere thing. So this clash will certainly continue.
Yeah, and just kind of on this same subject, there was just a really good report in Business Insider yesterday by the journalist Aki Ito. I mean, she more or less did a story about how roughly half of Americans are now down to turn down a promotion just because they don't want to be in the office again, or they don't want some sort of added responsibility that gives them less leisure time. I mean, so many things are shifting in corporate America.
You're right on the money. Me and Rob just talked about that yesterday. So you're right here.
Yeah.
With smaller budgets, shorter timelines, and sky-high expectations, growth is feeling pretty painful right now. But HubSpot is here to help. They just announced more than 200 major product updates that'll make impossible business growth feel impossibly easy. Like Breeze, HubSpot's suite of new AI tools that help you say goodbye to busy work and hello to better work. There's Breeze Copilot, a sidekick to assist you with all your tasks and boost productivity, Breeze Agents to automate manual, time-consuming work and add expertise, and Breeze Intelligence to give you the richest, most comprehensive picture of your prospects you know, which are most likely to become loyal customers. They've also reimagined their marketing and content hubs with all new ways to create breakthrough content, updated features to generate better leads, and lots more to uplevel your marketing and your revenue forecast. Get ready for growth without the growing pains. Visit HubSpot.com/spotlight to see them all and demo for yourself.
All right, on to the main story today. The business of Halloween is booming, emphasis on the boo, With the holiday gaining tons of popularity throughout the years, it seems inflation is cowering in its boots at the spending numbers this year. So, Mark, how much do you spend on Halloween every year? Have you noticed a change in your personal Halloween spend?
I'll say this. I went and I bought candy the other day to hand out, on Thursday, and it cost me close to $25, I want to say.
Okay.
And I only bought 4 packages. So to me, that was, an instance of inflation, right? I am in general a fan of Halloween. I will typically spend a little bit of money on a costume. Yeah, maybe altogether, I bet I spend maybe $50 or something like that on the holiday. But I think I'm sort of a rarity because the spending is actually quite a bit higher for most Americans who participate in Halloween, at least.
Yeah, according to the National Retail Federation, it seems that the average American spends about $104 on Halloween every year.
Right.
That spending, of course, goes to a lot of things. You mentioned you picked up some candy, picked up a costume. It seems like the cost breakdown is fairly similar across a lot of American households. But this year, customers are expected to, once all is said and done, spend $11.6 billion for Halloween.
Yeah. And that's right about the same as last year. If you look back just a few years, though, Halloween spending, I think it was about $8 billion, $9 billion in 2019. This isn't just inflation, right? This is people actually spending more than they were a few years ago. If you go all the way back to 1996, the best numbers that I could find for back then were that US spending on Halloween was just $2.5 billion. So it's increased about 5 or 6x since then, even though inflation has maybe doubled during that time. So we're talking about a significant increase beyond inflation.
Yeah.
There's quite a few reasons for that. But I think what it comes down to is that Halloween has evolved in, frankly, just a fairly short time from something where the focus was on children to where it is still on the children, but it's also on adults too.
Yeah, for sure. It has really gained a new life these past few years as kind of a holiday that you not only celebrate on Halloween, but you also celebrate kind of year round with this new summerween trend we actually mentioned on the podcast a few months ago, starting as early as April with Halloween decor being pushed out September, August every year, with companies like Home Depot putting out more and more Halloween decor every single year with the big skeleton, the viral Skelly Daddy that everybody buys and puts on their lawns now. But you were mentioning before that, sure, this could be due to some inflation and why these numbers are increasing year over year. And there could be some truth of it in the US population increasing as well. But there is some bigger element under here, considering that adults are now spending on themselves and it's becoming a year-round spectacular.
I think there's just more of a push. When you think about Halloween, before we started chatting on the pod here, John, we were talking about scary movies a little bit.
Yeah.
And those have actually become more popular in the last couple of decades. They've become like the most reliable kind of return on investment for a lot of studios outside of just like the huge blockbusters that, have superheroes in them and all that. Like horror movies have just become more part of mainstream culture. I think that the larger sort of movement of like fantasy and different kind of movements that we associated with like geek fandom and whatnot have all just become very much more mainstream. And I just think Halloween fits into that too.
Yeah. You also last year published a story about the economics of haunted houses,
right,
which are also another vehicle for spending and are gaining a lot of traction year over year as well.
So the numbers that I kind of found, and this is amazing. I interviewed this one guy named Leonard Pickle,
great name,
who runs the Haunted House Consulting Company. Yeah, it is a great name. And his company name, though, is Entrepreneurs, which is an even better name.
Oh, even better.
And so he says there's probably around 2 times as many haunted houses in the United States as there were in the 1990s. And it's pretty hard to really estimate exactly how much revenue that they bring in. But industry estimates from another trade association there called America Haunts put it at around maybe $300 million to $500 million annually. So that's a pretty good chunk of change there. And there are some, really big haunted houses that will see almost like 1,000 people a night during October. Like they bring in a ton of people. So there's so many different parts, I think, really, for why we're seeing this big number of, just under 12 billion for Halloween. It's like you've got candy, you've got costumes, you've got decorations, you've got haunted houses, and sort of other kind of associated entertainment. Outside of Christmas, it's hard to think of another holiday that has that much versatility and variety associated with it.
Yeah.
Like it's like Valentine's Day, you go to dinner and maybe you get like a gift. Granted, that spending adds up, but it's just like Halloween comes at you in so many different ways, which I think is what has elevated it from something that was a relative afterthought, at least in terms of spending, to something that's become a very big deal.
Yeah. And we're seeing the industry kind of bounce off that pound for pound. I mean, in pumpkin sales, for example, people were buying about 4.5 pounds of pumpkin in 2005, and now they're buying on average 6 pounds of pumpkin in 2023. Spirit Halloween grew from 130 locations to more than 1,500 this year across the US and Canada. So it seems that we're kind of gaining in Halloween across the board every year, and not sure when that bubble is going to burst. It seems like pretty here to stay for years to come.
We were talking about inflation kind of at the beginning of this. And, since 2021, when inflation really kicked in, a couple of things have been true. One is that despite the inflation, Americans have largely kept on spending, like basically on everything. Like they keep on doing it. And that's maybe changed a little bit over the last few months, but in general, that's been the trend line. And then secondly, like the event economy, right? People love to spend on events. And what is Halloween but an event? Something to kind of really have fun with your family and your friends on. And I think those are 2 long-term things that we're going to see continue.
And with that, I would like to end with a fact of the day, little final fact of the day about candy. So if you didn't know, the Baby Ruth candy bar was actually named after President Grover Cleveland's baby daughter, Ruth. Enjoy that while you're not eating a Baby Ruth bar on Halloween, because there are much better candies out there. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. Our editor is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clark. We got a lot more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go get signed up for hustle.co/email and throw us a follow on Instagram at The Hustle Daily. We'll see you tomorrow.
If you're struggling to keep up with all the latest innovations in tech and what they'll mean for your life, TED Tech has you covered. Get ahead of the curve with digestible downloads on some of the biggest ideas in technology, from AI and virtual reality to clean tech. Find TED Tech wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I've been listening to this awesome podcast lately. It's called Hustle and Flowchart, hosted by Joe Fear. And it's brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. The Hustle and Flowchart podcast with Joe Fear is all about how to build a business so it gives you the freedom and fuel for your life. You can join Joe as he discusses systems, mindset tweaks, reframes, and strategies for entrepreneurs and really anyone, to be honest, to enjoy the process of being in business and also having fun. This isn't just for the entrepreneur looking to make $1 billion business, but it's also for somebody who's looking to build systems that work for you so you can make more money than you need just by working part-time, essentially. I was actually just listening to an episode he had on Kareen Walsh behind the app Hey Kareen, and Kareen talked a lot about how to scale your business effectively, especially if you're just a startup, especially if you are just an app startup specifically. It's an awesome episode. I would recommend it to anyone. You could check them out and you can listen to the Hustle and Flow chart wherever you get your podcasts.